So the next thing I thought we'd talk about here is a little bit about mobile apps, and this is actually was inspired by a report by Dan Tynan. He's a tech columnist for Yahoo Tech, and the report here is basically that 1 in 5 Android apps is malware. And that's kind of an interesting statistic. He took this from the Semantic Internet Security Threat Report. I think this is all based on 2014 statistics that Symantec had gathered. And one of the things that was pointed out is about 17% of the Android apps, nearly 1 million of the ones that were evaluated total, were actually malware in disguise. 1 million different apps, that's a significant number. And then on top of that, about 1/3 of all apps were what Symantec calls grayware, or basically adware, basically things that their primary purpose is to bombard you with ads or something along those lines. And so I thought this was really kind of, I had to get my head around this a little bit and try to get it, why is this the case? And it sort of kind of occurred to me that, good apps are going to generally capture a market and grow their market and continue to evolve their market and remain relatively stable. If it's not a good app, maybe it's just going to go away. Whereas folks that are trying to get some sort of malicious app out into the market, they're going to put it out in the market, it's going to be discovered, people are going to tend to shy away from it, start giving it bad reviews, it's going to lose its market. And so they have to create a new one, and then they have to create a new one, and they have to create a new one. And whether they're, basically taking someone else's app and kind of cloning it and making it look like it's a legitimate one, they're basically, basically Trojanizing it. They need to follow the dynamics. They're not really developing a following around the apps themselves. And so that would tend to skew these numbers significantly. That is, they're continuing to develop more and more malicious apps because their market's kind of eroding over time, whereas the good apps tend to be relatively stable.
So this sort of runs counter to what we thought we knew from the Verizon DBIR that came out a couple weeks ago, which stated that mobile malware really is not a big problem and it's kind of been overblown. This would maybe it suggests the opposite, or maybe it suggests that the statistics that they're using are slightly different?
Well, I think there are probably two things here. One is that I think, relatively speaking, the malware that exists in the PC world is significantly more, and probably more malicious in general. Mm-hmm. That is, the opportunities for infecting. And when we talk about desktops, we talk about Windows system. We're not even just talking about a desktop itself, an end user device. It could potentially be on servers, and so I think the implications are different in that sense. So I think the measures are different, relatively speaking. And my impression is it's still a very small amount of malware in the mobile devices compared to the Windows space or the non-mobile device space.
I don't think that those two statistics are necessarily contradictory for some of the reasons that you just pointed out, Brian. There is, you do have to create more malicious ones because the old ones will get blocked or go away, and their following will go away. But the actual number of good apps, or the number of apps that are installed on real devices, most of them are good. Very few of the very few of the mobile handsets and tablets and that stuff have been infected, and that's in part because if you stick to the official channels, the official app stores and so forth, that's not where most of the malicious stuff is. Mm-hmm. Most of the malicious stuff is showing up on these third-party sites, especially we've seen a lot of it in China and South Korea over the years, and so I don't think that those are necessarily contradictory terms. There is a lot of the new apps probably are malware, but a very small percentage of the devices are actually infected.
Yep, very good point, Jim. And you actually made the other point that I was going to make, which is that in terms of protecting yourself, so long as you stay with the mainstream markets, you're relatively well protected. That those pieces of malware, if they do get in there, it's relatively infrequent, but if they do get in there, they get taken out fairly quickly compared to some of these other markets. And in fact, you may have pointed out another aspect of this. That is, I think the Verizon report's predominantly sort of a domestic, U.S. domestic report. That is, it's done in cooperation with FBI, Secret Service, and others. And so they would tend to be thinking in terms of crimes that affect U.S. users. Whereas, Jim, as you pointed out, a lot of these mobile malware apps tend to be targeting organizations or other countries more so than in the United States, partly because of the off-market app sources. Anyway, I guess my final point here is just another reinforcement of the fact that there really is no free lunch for any of these apps. Whenever you load them, there's some reason that app exists. If it's free or appears to be free, it probably isn't free. There's something that, and usually the motivation is monetary, that there's something around that. It may be gathering information, or maybe to provide ads, which is one of the, sort of what constitutes grayware in some of these cases. And so you really just need to make a decision whether it's worthwhile to you. Make sure you're reading the fine print on the user agreement so that you at least have some cognizance of what your payment really is for the apps that you're downloading. All right?